Hi, Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and here's another interview in my series of interviews with subscribers. Enjoy! Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us today. It's another one of the Idiot Quilter Presents interviews, and I have a very special guest today by way of her mother, because you will see coming up at the time that you see this interview online, you will have already seen the interview I did with Shirley, which is Chala's mother. And she told me all about you. And I said, yes, for sure, I would love to interview you. So we're going to do that. So I'll just get you to say your name again, which is an unusual first name. Maybe you can give us a little history on that as well, but just your name and where you are located.
Sure. My name is Chala Frank, and my name actually comes from Sesame Street. So it could have been more, I could have been named Snuffleupagus, but my sister named me. So yeah, it's just a really unique name. And it isn't until many years later that I found out it's a name, I guess, from Costa Rica. I don't know. So yeah. And I'm actually from Calgary, Alberta.
Yeah. Okay. So far from Costa Rica, that's for sure. And yeah, that it is an unusual name. It's a very nice name, really. And I'm sure when you were going to school, you didn't probably meet anybody else with your first name.
Nobody else. That's right.
So there you are. You are unique, and I'm sure your creations are too. So let's jump right into it. You are a crafter. Now, usually I interview people who are more into the quilting world, but I have interviewed a few crafters before. And because, as I was telling you before we started recording, I did scrapbooking, art journaling, paint pouring, you name it, paper crafts of all sorts for years and years and years before I fell into the trap of quilting. So I'm really interested in hearing about your experience. So how long have you been doing this kind of stuff?
Well, I just celebrated a birthday yesterday, so a little less than 45 years. I guess.
So your whole life.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's great. And just so we know, what kind of crafting do you do?
So I actually do it all, Stephen. I've quilted. I've made a quilt for my son, which I took on a big undertaking with that one because I designed it myself. And then I sewed it on a regular cheap Singer sewing machine. So yeah, it was a really unique experience. And I just had a lot of fun meeting the ladies at the quilt store who helped me put it all together. So that was fun. I do paper crafts. I've done card making. I crochet, knit, paint, you name it. I pretty much do it all.
Yeah, I was going to say, you sounds like you do it all as well. So, and so how did you get started? Well, you've been doing it since right out of the cradle, kind of a thing, it sounds like. But was there a point where you would say, like, yes, this is what I want to do. This is what brings me joy?
I guess my crafter in crime really is my mother. She very much was who introduced me to the crafting world, as well as my grandmothers. They were always knitting or crocheting. I think it really started. I really started taking an interest in crafting when I was in elementary school. Doing different types of art through school and introducing you to different mediums, which was great. So I probably really started getting interested. I would say in like grade 6, 7.
So, and you've kind of answered my next question because it was about anyone influencing you in your family. Now, you said your mother, your grandmothers. Was there anybody else?
I guess my dad as well. He was actually a house painter for many years, and he would come home with his paint pants and all the different splotches of paints on his pants, his coveralls or whatever. It just made beautiful designs. He actually had one of his clients take a piece of his work pants, cut it out, and frame it as a piece of artwork on their walls. So even just that, my dad seeing him, working with paint on walls was an amazing influence as well.
Yeah, so basically you have come from a very crafty family by the sounds of things, which is great. So what's your favorite creation, if you have one? That's actually a really difficult question, and I know that.
It really is. I really build a relationship with every project that I make. So you put your heart and soul in everything that you make. And it's weird. You bond with that project that you're making. And so honestly, everything that I create is special. I have anxiety. And so crafting really, really helps me deal with that anxiety. So I love it that I can take something that can be such a negative in your life and really just turn it into something beautiful. So I just always have to have my hands busy, and it's just everything I make, I have a connection with, because it's whatever's going on in my life. I'm kind of putting that into my art.
Yeah, and I like the way that you put it, that it's a relationship between you, the human element, the creator, and the supplies and materials that you're using. And I think that really elevates the whole world of crafting a little bit more, because I think sometimes crafting has a bad name. People who aren't into it think, oh, you got a glue gun and a glue stick and you're sticking a piece of paper on another piece of paper. And it's so much more than that. And you've also mentioned the therapeutic aspects of it as well. I find that too with doing quilting. It brings some calm into your life. And we need a lot of calm in our lives, I think, anymore. So yeah, that's a really nice way of putting it, and the bonding with the materials as well. So what kind of crafter would you describe yourself as? Like traditional, modern, freeform, experimental, exploratory?
I am eclectic, chaotic. I like to just try everything, do everything. I don't like to limit myself. I don't want to put myself in a box of categorizing what type of crafter I am, because I am everything. Yeah, I just think that it's important to explore all the different mediums out there and find something that works for you. And unfortunately, everything works for me. So I just like to do it all.
Yeah, I would agree with you about like trying everything. Because, there are some people who will label themselves, say they're a scrapbooker and they do not make cards, or I'm a craft maker and I will not scrapbook. And I have met people like that. And I think they're really cutting themselves off to something that would, extend their world, their areas of creativity and things like that. So yeah, so I agree. Eclectic, I think, is a good word for people who are into crafting when they want to try a lot of things, because yeah, there's always something new on the horizon, and I think too, you probably do this yourself. You probably go, well, you look at a new supply and you go, what if, what if I took this and then did this with it and see what comes up? And at least that's what I always liked about crafting, and still do, of course.
That's right. I think that's one of the things I really love about what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of focusing on junk journaling right now. And what I absolutely love about it is you don't need a ton of supplies. You literally are working with whatever's hanging around, and that you can incorporate so many different styles of crafts into that one craft. So you can add crocheting, you can add tatting, you can add your jelly prints, your painting. Like it's just an all-encompassing craft. So that's what I really like about kind of where I am at right now in my crafting journey.
So just as a side question then about junk journaling, because I was into that for a while as too, and I know exactly what you mean, just creating something out of basically junk, junk mail, whatever you have laying around, using up your bits and pieces of scraps and things. So when you do these, what do you do with them afterwards? When they're done, do you give them away or?
Yeah, so I make some for gifts. I've been selling a lot on Etsy, and sometimes I like to hoard them for myself for a while as well. But, I think, like you said, one of the great things about it is using the mailers and stuff. And I'm not sure how familiar people are with the concept of junk journaling. It's nothing new. In fact, my grandmother, she was 108 when she passed away.
Wow.
So she grew up with, in the time where there was very little, and paper was really a commodity. It was a hot commodity for them. So they would save things like orange wrappers to use as toilet paper, right? Like it was just, those were lean times. And so they used to take bundles of just scrap pieces of paper, and they would bind them up into little booklets and have that to write on. And, that's what the kids would do. And so it's obviously not a new craft. it's something that I love that it's coming back. I think in the crafting world, we are such a consumer type of people that we're losing the fact that we can create something. And it scares me to think that what happens if all the factories go down, no one's gonna know how to make anything. And
Yeah.
um, I just think that it's so important to keep some of these traditions alive.
Yeah. And I also think too, what you're suggesting is the whole idea of the sustainable environment and, being environmentally friendly and all that kind of stuff, recycle, reuse, and junk journals, as well as many other crafts too, do exactly that. They repurpose things. And there's a big movement for that now, and not just in crafting, but it seems like in every area of our lives these days. And I think that's a good thing because, we're wearing out the planet, as they say. So that takes me then to, and I can see it already. So how would you describe your crafting area?
So it's chaotic. No, I'm in my basement. I don't have a fancy craft room. You don't need a fancy craft room. You just need a little small area to work and get creative. And I'm very blessed to have this little space that I get to call my own. And like I said, it's nothing fancy, but it's mine, and it's somewhat organized, but it's somewhat not. I have my camera mounted to my ceiling, and I have this little table behind me where I kind of roll it out. I do all my crafting, and then it kind of forces me to have to put everything away to roll the table back, because also over here is where I work when I'm working from home. I'm a legal assistant by day, and so I have to have a space that I can work and craft in when I'm working from home.
Yeah, well, I can see just in what I'm seeing right now that you have, like most crafters, a ton of stuff. And I know what that is like as well. And yeah, you can craft anywhere, but it is nice to have at least some little area in your home that's yours, that you can sort of escape from everybody else and just go. Some people call it their happy place. I've heard that many times before. And I do have a fairly large, well, now it's a sewing room. It was my craft room, but a year ago, I decided to go all out. I needed the space for that. And I had a lot of stuff, and I just gave it to my crafting friends. They came over and shopped my stash, and they were as happy as anything going out with. They literally went out with hundreds and thousands of dollars of stuff because it adds up. And they kept saying, well, we'll pay for you. And I says, nope, I'm just happy it's got a good home. I said, and that I know someone else is going to get joy from it. I got what I needed out of it and moving on. So yeah, I just don't know what's going to happen to all of our stuff when we pass off. Hopefully somebody who appreciates it will, take it, and it won't end up in landfill or something like that. So what's your favorite? And I know this is a difficult question too. What's your favorite? Let's start with what's your favorite tool that you can't live without, that you reach for 9 times out of 10 when you're crafting?
This is going to sound ridiculous. I don't have a favorite tool. My favorite tool, honestly, are my hands, because I just, I can't really pick a tool. There's nothing that really I'm like, oh, I can't live without that. It's my hands. I can't live without my hands. That's it.
Well, it would be difficult, wouldn't it, to craft without your hands? Yeah, I get it. That's true. And what about a technique? Is there something, or let's, instead of saying your favorite, let's say something that's your current go-to technique?
I'm really getting into jelly printing right now. I just think that technique is so cool, because you never know what you're going to get when you pull up a print. And the messier, the better. I think it's a really, really cool technique that you can use with card making, with journal making, frame it, put it on your wall. It's just so much fun to play around with the paints and the.
I got bitten by the jelly plate bug too, and went down that rabbit hole. And I've also transferred that. I kept all my jelly plates and supplies that because I've transferred it over to printing fabric as well, because you can do that too. Now, I haven't done a lot of it yet, but my plan is to do a little bit more in design, that kind of thing. But yeah, I know what you mean. Excuse me. And they always come out with new things or new techniques, and you got to have it. And I was obsessive. I have to have it all. If it had 10 things in the set, I had to have them all, all the time. So yeah, and I'm kind of like that now with fabric. But oh, new line of fabric, love it. Got to have it all with it. So there could be that maybe saying something about my obsessive personality, but we won't go there. So if
That's a
you
whole
had, go ahead. What's that?
that's a whole other episode.
Oh yeah. Well, we were talking about therapy before
Yeah.
earlier, so yeah. So if you had all the money in the world, is there one piece of crafting equipment or something you'd invest in?
That is a tough one as well
Yeah.
because I'm fortunate. I have a silhouette. I have a brother scan and cut. Um, I have some pretty great tools, but if you're just starting out, honestly, you don't need much to craft. I think, like you said, it's so easy to get caught up in the, oh, I got to have it, the newest and greatest thing. And I've really tried to pull myself back over the last year of getting caught up on the latest and greatest. So, um, I don't think there's anything out there right now that I'd really want to spend my money on. Um, except for paper. I'm a little bit addicted to all the different lines
Uh-huh.
of paper, like your fabric, right?
Yep.
So I think
Yeah.
I would invest in some more paper.
Yeah, I know the paper. That's, I think, what got me into scrapbooking because I didn't before then. I never didn't know about scrapbooking. I didn't know about scrapbooking paper and all that kind of stuff. And I went right down the rabbit hole with that. Every line that came up, I fell in love with it. I had to have all kinds of it. Always buy extra because you might need it. And yeah, they carried out of this place when I cleaned out last year. I think I had 10 cardboard boxes that were yay big, filled, filled,
Wow.
and they felt sheepish. So, oh, we don't want to take it. I said, it's been sitting in these boxes for years. I don't even know what I have. I saw it was pretty, and that's what's become of my fabric too. It's pretty. People say, "What are you going to do with that?" I don't know. It's pretty. I want it. I'll find something.
That's
But yeah. And now, would you consider yourself a frugal crafter then, or do you just buy things like when I see it and I want it, I buy it?
I think in the beginning when I first started, I'd get really, really excited and I'm like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. But now as I sit back and reflect and I have a small space, I can't outgrow the space. I need to be mindful that I'm not going to take over the house with all my stuff. And like you said, you don't want to die leaving all of this stuff. And that would be my worst nightmare, is to have all of this like into the garbage. So I'm more mindful now about what I purchase. So if I'm going to buy something, it has to be something that I know that I have a project in mind for. And then I kind of have a list of my projects that I'm going to do. And I literally go down that list so that I don't get overwhelmed, because yeah, it's so easy just to hoard things and we can't do that. We have to use them. So I try to be more mindful in my purchases and make sure that there's a specific use for it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think at the first, when you get into something new, you want it all and you do buy a lot of it. But as time goes on, I think you do realize, like, as you said, you fill up your space. Where are you going to put it, for one thing? And a lot of the time, some of the things that you had to have at that moment in time have been sitting on a shelf with dust. You used it a little bit, and so why add to it? I guess that's where some people say they won't bring something new into their environment until something old goes out. I guess that idea. Yeah, I've tried that. It didn't work for me, but as I'm a hoarder. But anyway, so, and there's something else there that I was thinking of when we were talking about this, about whether we're frugal or whatever. Organization. Yeah. You said you make project lists because you don't want to get overwhelmed. So how successful are you on those lists? And what I mean by that is sticking to them.
I have to give myself some credit here. I've been pretty good. I'd say I've been doing the project list for about a year now, and I've done pretty good. I've once or twice kind of veered off the path, maybe because somebody's birthday came up or I've been asked to create a project. And otherwise, I think that, yeah, having having a list really kind of keeps me accountable for what I'm going to do, and it just seems to work well for me. Again, lists don't work for everybody. You kind of have to
Yeah.
find what works best for you, but it really helps me kind of zero in on what I want to get done and not have the supplies just sit there and create dust and not be used.
Right. So it sounds to me like you are the kind of person that you're a list maker. And I have a feeling you apply that to other areas of your life as well, because I'm a list maker. But what happens with me is I make the project list, and then I make a list about the list, and then I make a list about that list, and I revise that list. And as time goes on, I have a whole lot of lists that I eventually have to go through, sort out, throw out, and start again with. But it helps me stay organized if I have a list as well. And I'm pretty good at sticking to those kind of things as well. But like you are in the legal profession, and I'm sure you have to be very organized from that. And for me, I came from the teaching, from education, and you have to be very organized from that. So it just naturally falls in with what we do for a living, or did. I'm retired now, but yeah. So that takes me to, have you ever belonged to an in-person group or design team or an online group that's, about crafting? And how'd that work out for you, or how is it working out for you?
Yeah, so I actually was a design team member for Scrap and Stamp Canada. I did that for about 3 years. They're based out of Vancouver, Canada. And I really enjoyed that process. The ladies that I worked with were so amazingly talented. I recently left it because I felt, again, it limited me, because of course a design team, part of their whole thing is to encourage people to use and buy different products. And I felt really limited because I had to feature so many products, and we had a basic theme to go off of, but then trying to work in those products that you kind of wanted to help them sell, I just felt it stifling a little bit. And so even though I was with an amazing group of women, working with them was such a pleasure, I needed to step away from that in order to grow creatively for myself. And yeah, I think it was a good experience at the time, but it was something I had to move on from. I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups. I think that we all are, right? We joined. I'm not in any in-person groups. Obviously, COVID put a kibosh on things. There's not a lot of junk journalers out there right now in my area, so it's very much an online thing, which is great because we can connect to so many people throughout the world. But I would eventually like to start a group up here and meet in person. Again, it goes back to our roots, where people used to get together to quilt together. There was quilting bees, and it was very much a social thing, and crafting really is a social thing. And I think that would be something I want to start in my community and get one going.
Now, on the design team, did you feel that now your crafting was becoming more like a job?
There definitely was a sense of pressure to meet some deadlines. And obviously I have a ton of deadlines at work. And I felt like I was losing a bit of my passion for crafting because there was a certain expectation. And I think crafting for me it's what I'm feeling at the time. And I need to kind of give myself permission to explore and let go. And I felt that I was very much kind of directed to do something. And that's not how I like to
Yeah, now I've never belonged to a design team. I thought about it years ago of getting on to a couple of different ones and trying that out. But I was afraid that, deadlines, I was used to deadlines and that as a teacher and all that kind of stuff. And when I retired, especially, I didn't want deadlines anymore from it. And I was also afraid it would take away the thrill and the joy I was getting out of it. Like, you get up in the morning and go, oh God, that's hanging over my head, I got to do that. Instead, wow, I want to do that, I want to try that, I'm excited, to get up in the morning and go to it, that kind of thing. So that brings me to one of the questions I didn't ask you, but I'm thinking, you say you have an Etsy store, right?
That's
so
correct.
Do you feel any pressure to produce, because that's a business really, of sorts. Do you feel any pressure to produce, or do you, what you have on there, and when you need to restock, well, it's just your timetable? And
Yeah, I try not to put any pressure on myself that way because like you said, at the end of the day, I come to my craft room to escape and relax. And I don't want the pressure of, oh, I need to get this into the store. I very much use my crafting for my own timeline. And if I get something in my store, that's great. If I don't, you know, it'll be there when it gets there and someone will fall in love with it when they're ready and when it's meant to be. And yeah, I try not to stress about it.
so basically, what I'm hearing then is it's not so much it's a business that you're relying upon an income from. It's more or less you have these things, you're putting them out there for other people to enjoy. Probably you're just charging for them enough to cover probably your materials. It's not like a corporate thing here with it. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of stores and things like that, then do you have any favorite stores or online sources where you pick up your supplies?
Um, I I try to stay away from big box. I like to support local, small mom and pop shops. There's some really great ones here in Calgary. Also, I love Scrap and Stamp Canada online. They're a great source as well, good shipping. So I just Prairie Paper and Ink or Paper and Ink here in Calgary is a great store that I like to support. Just yeah, local. I try to stay away from the big box.
Yeah, yeah, I try to as well, the same with that. And I like to support Canadian as well. And of
Great.
course, given what it costs you if you buy something from the States to get it shipped here anyways, and with our dollar exchange, you might as well
That's
go Canadian because it works out
right.
cheaper in some ways. But yeah, the same thing. And I enjoyed back when I was a crafter, we had a little store here in our area, still here. Actually, the owner is a friend of mine. I used to work for her when I did a little bit of a stint in retail after I retired because I thought this was going to be lots of fun. And well, it was okay for a while, but we used to have a joke. Paycheck would come in. I would hand that back to my boss plus a little extra because anything new that came in the store, I'm loading up on it. So it was a way of feeding my habit financially, kind of a thing. And I taught some classes and things too for the store. But I just found after a while, it became I was doing things, and that's why I asked a question about the design team, because I found when I was working for the store, there was pressure I felt to produce things to demonstrate new products and things like that for the store. So I got out of that. The novelty wore off after a while, but anyways, yeah. So yeah, I like to support. I still support that store though as well. If I need any, I don't buy much anymore in that line, but I do love the little stores and the quilting stores too. Uh, I like to go in, I like to feel the things. But I do buy a lot in line too. So, I mean, who doesn't? So do you have any favorite experts or sources of information or inspiration that you turn to?
Well, obviously, my mom, she's my number one source of inspiration. I always bounce ideas off of her. It's not uncommon for me to text her at like 10 o'clock at night. What do you think of this? Um, but in the junk journaling that I'm doing right now, Gail Agustinelli is a really amazing crafter that I take a lot of inspiration from. She's very much like me, working out of her basement, just, having fun. And she has some great ideas. There's a lot of people on YouTube who are local around the world that I've met that, I take inspiration from them as well. And I just think there's so many amazing crafters out there. If I could just have a chat with every single one of them, it would be great. So I take inspiration from them and my kids, to tell you the truth. I have a whole bunch of my kids' artwork hanging on my wall, and they'll create something, and I'm like trying to figure out how I can incorporate that or their ideas into my work as well. And I think the best artwork is created by kids because they have no inhibitions. Us as adults, we tend to get worried about putting pen to paper, or we're kind of bound up of anxiety or whatever we have. But kids are just free and they just put it all out there, and I like to try to encompass their joy of creating as well.
Yeah, I understand what you mean by that because I was always amazed as a teacher, and I was a high school teacher, but letting the kids just take a concept and go with it. And the things they would come up with were mind-boggling. I never would have thought of that in 1,000 years. So, I understand that. And as for me, I mean, the experts change all the time in all the crafts and the arts and everything like that. So you never know. My favorite always was Tim Holtz. And I actually got to meet him and go to a workshop once years ago. In fact, it was a surprise buy. I was telling you about the lady with the store that I worked at. Well, the company that she bought a lot of her supplies for the store were having a special event. She asked me, it was in Michigan. She asked me if I wanted to go with her. And at first I said, I didn't know if I really wanted to go to Michigan to, it's this company. I didn't know what was going on. She didn't tell me it was Tim Holtz. And she knew how much I loved Tim Holtz. And so we get down there, we're waiting to go in, and I'm looking at this huge warehouse of stuff. Like I'm going, can we pick out things? I mean, it was like row after row after row, everything you'd ever thought of, and then some things you hadn't thought of. And I'm standing there gawking around, and this person came up to the side of me, and I saw them in peripheral vision, and I was yapping away, and I turned and looked, and it was Tim Holtz. I'm like, my God, you're Tim Holtz. Talk about fanboy. I mean, I was just like a little kid, seeing their superhero or something like that. And then he called me by my first name, and like, you know my first name? How is this? And then it was revealed to me that this had been a secret. My boss had done a lot of work. She had sent him at the time I was doing on my YouTube channel, all of my crafting, kind of like what you do. And so she had sent him to my channel to see what I did and told we're coming up for this. And I'm still am to this day. I'm so much a fan of his. I still watch him, even though I don't do a lot of that stuff anymore. But that was probably one of the biggest highlights ever in my life, is meeting him. And he is such a nice person. He's exactly the same in real life as he is in on his videos and things like that. But anyways, I'm digressing here. Get my fanboy out of me for a moment.
It's like craft royalty, right? Like,
oh yeah, like, and his story of how he got started crafting was he never wanted to. He worked for some local little store, craft store in retail, and they made him go to a workshop on using rubber stamps, and he didn't want to go. And they told him, well, you're going to have to go. And he got bitten by that. And now look at him, like, right. My God, but anyways, this isn't about him. This is about you. So moving back to that, I just had this moment here. Ooh. So what's my next question here? Okay, so do you have any, now you make project lists and things like that, and you like to try new things. So do you have any challenges or goals for the future in terms of projects you want to do that are definitely, I have to do this?
I want to do a little bit more pour painting. I've done some pour painting, but the one thing that I really want to work with that scares the living bejesus out of me is I don't know why, but resin scares me, and I want to create something with resin. So that's kind of like a bucket list craft thing to do. But otherwise, and just in terms of my journaling, I have a list of different theme journals I want to do. I've got a Dolly Parton journal I want to do. I did a Betty White journal. I want to do an Asian kind of theme inspired one. So I have, some different projects on the go, but I think my bucket list item is definitely resin. I want to work with resin and just give it a try and jump in and like pull the Band-Aid off of that and just give it a try.
Now, I don't know if it's true now, but a couple of years ago, I got into resin a little bit. I didn't go that far with it, but there was a shortage of resin supplies at that point in time. That was just before COVID hit. So, there was an explanation given to me. I went to a local art store to get the resin supplies, Curry's. I don't know if I don't think you have a Curry's out there. That's more Ontario kind of thing. They're not a huge chain, but they are a chain. But they told me they were having trouble getting resin supplies, and that went on for quite a long time. So I don't know if it's better now or not. But resin is a very interesting medium, because there's a lot of things you can do with resin. As I found out, and I didn't do a lot of them. I got a little bit out of it, but part of it was the well, one, the expense, because resin isn't cheap. And
That's
it
right.
is a bit on the messy side. And I'm kind of a mess when I craft. Like if I can wear it, I will be, that kind of thing. But I want to ask you though about the Dolly Parton and the Betty White journals. What what are they?
I take little golden books
Mhm.
and I alter them to become journals that you can write in and different things. So it's um yeah, it's one was a Betty White little golden journal book that I did, and it was kind of a memorial journal. And what I did is I recently sold it, and the entire sale proceeds of that is going to go to an animal shelter here in her memory. But they're just, yeah, they're fun things to that little golden books put out, is these different
Yeah.
stories of their life, and then I just try to build on that with the different supplies that I have, and just make a fun journal out of it.
Yeah, that is not something I've ever heard of as a theme for a journal, an actual person, but that's a really great idea. With that, it's almost making me want to now make a journal. But oh, and the other question I was going to ask you about, so you make journals. Have you ever gotten into, or do you have any interest in doing book binding, making hardcover books?
So it's, yeah, it's another thing on my list. I do, the regular binding in the journals that we do. I'm slowly getting there. The hardcover books are intimidating. I do take hardcover books and alter them and bind into the spines, but to actually do start to finish of building my own covers and stuff, it's a process. It's on my list, but again, it's a little further down of where I want it to be. But yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
I got into that too in a big way. And actually you're right, it is a little bit intimidating. It's a process that takes, there is some skills you have to develop with it, and it is time consuming to do it, to bind them. But when you finish one, you'll be very, very proud of it. And it's very doable. And there's lots of sources out there for it. But again, that's something I tried, moved on from all of that. Okay, so now I consider people who are crafter. I don't really like the word crafter, because crafter, like I said before, suggests to a lot of people who don't do these kind of things that, yeah, you got a glue stick and some paper. And they think of like kindergarten and grade one. But it's not that. Crafters are artists. Quilters are artists. People who sew are artists. Anybody who does something that is creative, I believe, is an artist. And so, how would you describe yourself as an artist? Now, you've already answered the question about how you would describe yourself as a what kind of crafts you do and that kind of stuff. But as an artist, I'm thinking a little wider here, not so much about the actual products, but your philosophy, I think.
um, that's a really good question.
It's a hard
Art is, yeah. Art is my therapy. Um, Although I think therapy is cheaper than art. uh,
one. Yeah.
how do I describe myself as an artist? Really don't know how to answer that one, because it's still kind of hard for me to think of myself as an artist.
Hmm.
Maybe I don't give myself enough credit in that department, but I just,
Well, don't, yeah, it's okay. You don't, because I don't think there is an exact answer to that. But like you said, it's hard for you to think of yourself as an artist, and because you don't think, and I'm maybe putting words in your mouth, that you are good enough for that title. And I can relate to that as well. But you want to know something? I used to also be uh, a guide in our local art gallery uh, for school kids, kind of a thing, for a while. And I really don't have an art background. I didn't study art at university. I was an English teacher. I studied literature and that kind of thing. But being exposed to that art and the things that I saw, that really widened my scope about what an artist is. It isn't just someone who paints or fine art. It's so many things. And in the art gallery, they had a lot of avant-garde stuff, a lot of experimental and things like that. And, you know, those people were fearless. They just went and they just did it, whatever they felt like. And that's what you're saying about the therapy and how you approach this as well. And I think that is truly what makes a person an artist, someone who is fearless, who creates because it brings them joy or puts them in a happy place, and they don't really care about what other people are going to say about it or whether or not it's going to be shown in a major museum where it's going to make millions of dollars. And I think that's what really an artist is. And I think when you said that you don't consider yourself an artist, well, I think by saying that you are an artist, because you are saying, I'm not bound by a box, you know, by a label. I go to everything. I do whatever. I'm eclectic and that kind of stuff. So yeah, and that's what I really want people to understand about crafters or sewers or sewists. I guess that's the term we now use, sewist, and quilters and all of that. It's so much more than our end product. It's the process. It's the adventure, I guess.
That's right. And I think at the end of the day, I create art for me, not anybody else. And if someone else happens to like it, that's great. I'm honored by that. But I can't create art for anybody else but other than myself. It's very personal. And you know, when you create something, it's like putting my heart onto a piece of canvas and then putting it out there for the world to see. So yeah, it's being, I guess, if I'm going to classify myself as an artist, but yeah, I probably should. It's a very personal journey. And
yeah.
When I share it, if other people like it, great. If not, it's not for you. That's fine.
Yeah. And I think for some people, they get into art and they get discouraged quickly if people don't, if they're not the best, if they don't get this feeling that people want to flock to them, they're the new thing out there, you know, whatever. And I think some people sell art in order to get that reinforcement. Well, you bought it, you paid money for it, so it must be worth something. But I think your philosophy is the philosophy that a true artist has. You know, they do it for themselves. It's, you know, that again, I go back to what you said, it's a relationship, you know, a bonding with your supplies and your ideas and your imagination. So speaking of that, we know you have an Etsy shop, but you also have a YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel has a very interesting name. And now could you, I'll get it wrong because I'm not looking at it at the moment, but what is the name of your YouTube channel?
So it's called Crafting Through the Chaos of Life with Chala Frank.
And that is when your mother told me about the name of it. And I said, wow, not going to find another one when you do a search on YouTube with that title at all. And I thought that, and I got thinking about your title, and now putting that with what we've been talking about, I can definitely see what you mean by that. But why did you start a YouTube channel?
I did it mainly for, I guess, socialization and for myself. Again, we were talking about back in the day, people used to get together to quilt, and it was a very social thing. So I thought it was just something that, you know what, I was creating. Why not try and connect with other people around the world or locally, and just share with other people that anyone can be creative. You don't need all the special tools. You don't have to have special schooling. And just, again, showing that mistakes are good. That's how you learn things. And you know, there's definitely a lot of crafters out there who will edit their mistakes out of their videos, and I didn't want that to be my channel. I want people to understand that creation is, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So I just, yeah, it was a way for me to just connect with other people, other crafters, because I don't have a lot of people around me who do as much as I do. Like, I have a few friends, we do some crafter treats and what have you, but yeah, it was just something to let people know, to get out and explore everything and just make it fun and connect with other people.
Well, the one thing, I've been watching your videos before we did this interview and everything to get a sense of what your YouTube channel is all about. And that was the one thing that stood out to me as well, is that you showed when things didn't go quite right, and you showed how you lived through that, how you altered it, how you made it work as well. And you're right. There's a lot of crafters out there that edit. And so I think those kind of videos are intimidating because people don't see the mistakes. They think, oh my God, I'll never be that good. So why should I try that? And that's why I call my channel The Idiot Quilter, because I started this out by pointing out my mistakes that I was making as a new, and I still point them out. And I'm my own worst critic, and I point them out. But the fact is, you will live through that. You learn something from it. In my case, it's only thread and fabric. It's not the end of the world here, okay?
I embrace Bob Ross's, mentality of happy little mistakes,
Yep.
right? Like that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, a tree can cover everything up. Yeah, exactly. So, do you have any advice for anyone who wants to get into more crafting, more art?
Yes, embrace your inner kindergartner, because once you let your inhibitions go and don't restrict yourself and don't have too much pressure on yourself, you're going to create something magical. Just let your emotions lead you. Let where you are in time and space lead you to whatever you're going to create. You don't need all the fancy tools in the world. Make art for yourself first before anybody else, and don't have any expectations. You're going to look at your artwork, like you said, you're your world's biggest critic, right? You can't tell me that Picasso didn't look at his stuff and go, not sure that's really work. But look at him now, right? Like he's world renowned. So I think anything I can tell you is you don't need a lot, and just have fun, just play with it.
Yeah, I like that. And I like the idea, bring the inner kindergarten out and go for it. Because in this day and age, we get really hung up on all the serious things in the world. And we kind of forget that we are just older kids at heart. And we need to tap into that to, get us through some of the trying times that we've been going through, and probably more to come. Unfortunately, that's life. But anyways, well, thank you so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. I am going to put the link to your YouTube channel in the show notes when this video goes up and everything, so people can check you out. Do you have any other areas where people can reach out for you, like Facebook or website? You have the Etsy store.
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook. Crafting Through the Chaos of Life is on Facebook, and I do have Instagram. I think that's PS I Love You. All that you can definitely check out in the description boxes of my videos. It's all kind of linked there, so you can check me out on all those mediums.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for this. I found it very enlightening, and I found it very interesting. And you're making me want to now suddenly go to those people I gave all my crafting supplies to and give it back. But, well, no, not really. I'll never be that kind of person. But anyways, so thank you so much. Do stay on the line when I end the recording. But again, thank you so much for doing this today. I really loved it.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, good. Well, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.